Ladies and gents, please welcome Paul Thomas Anderson.
One of these days, I don't know when, I'll revisit Inherent Vice. It's been a while, which is good. It's good to get distance, between making something and revisiting it. And I do think about it from time to time. I think, I can't wait until that moment where I can see that in a different lens, with a bit of distance. Be exciting to do.
Well, Paul, I think about Inherent Vice once in a while, and I gotta tell you, it's my opinion as the guy that did 45 episodes on it. It holds up. I enjoy it. It's my favorite movie ever. Yeah, I would say it holds up. It's pretty strong.
I had heard of that, and it made me dizzy even thinking about it. Making that film made me dizzy. I was, oh my Lord, that is so much work. One of these days, I will venture to revisit. I couldn't believe it. It really made my heart warm. I thought, God, that's a lot of work. It's great.
It was a joy from start to finish.
Oh my
45
God.
episodes, and the best part about it was it wasn't about solving the movie. It wasn't like, oh, we want to know, is Sortilege real? Is this really happening? Anything like that? It's just all of us and the hosts and the guests, we were like detectives, just putting together what we found, like coming together and seeing the movie from different perspectives. Ryan would come on and talk about the Neil Young scene in the rain and what it meant to him, which is something completely different to us. And it was such a wonderful Rorschach of being able to see how people experience films and how different they can be based on their experiences. And it was just a real gift. And the film is a gift, just like Licorice Pizza. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience for us both.
Really quickly, just want to say, to sort of paraphrase you, we are enthusiasts and connoisseurs, and we have no idea how to adequately describe this remarkable potion of a film, Licorice Pizza. It's really stunning, and we're just grateful to chat to you today.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Blake, bring in the hyperbole.
It's
a beautiful, joyous film. It was the first new film I've seen in theaters this year. I've seen a bunch of old stuff at the New Beverly, but this was my first brand new film on the big screen, and it was just pure joy.
Did you get a chance to go down to the Village to see it?
Front row balcony.
Oh, the best seats in the house. The best.
Fought for those seats, baby. Fought for those seats. Front row balcony. It was gorgeous. Felt like I had the whole screen to myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, those four in the center and the front row balcony. Those are that's the brass ring right there. That's the velvet rope seats. Yeah.
You did a filmed interview with Vice magazine during the Inherent Vice press tour. And the interviewer asked you, the same question I'm sure you're getting on this tour. Why the 70s and LA again? And you had countered with, well, that's actually a question you should ask Thomas Pynchon in 2009, writing a book that was set in what's well-trod ground for him. And you said, the question for Pynchon is, what's still nagging at him that you've got to look back? That you're Thomas Pynchon, you could have written about anything, but he's still going back to look at this time one more time. And so now that we're talking about a PTA original that's gone back to this milieu, the Valley, LA, the 70s, what's nagging at Paul that you have to look back and tell Alana and Gary's story?
Okay, well, now this is the problem with doing a podcast with some proper, real grade A film nerds, because that is such a good question. You're using my own words against me.
We take notes, baby. We take notes.
Yeah. I prefer the softball kind of, it's a great question. That's exactly right. What the hell is nagging at me that I would return yet again? And the answer is, I have no idea. It's like, I suppose it becomes a long list of ways to try to talk yourself out of something, right? Well, how about you have this terrific story of this kid selling waterbeds? Okay, well, what's an equivalent? What if I wanted to make a film that was a contemporary film, save myself all the trouble of recreating a period? just go take a camera, run down to those streets right now. All right, what's the equivalent of a waterbed? Well, you draw blanks. You don't. There's nothing. There's nothing as good as a waterbed. Okay, well, how would he sell himself to the world? Well, he'd have a YouTube channel. Check. That's not sexy. I'm not doing that. And you kind of you do these somersaults to sort of wonder if you could get yourself out of what is inevitable. and and you can't stop what's coming. At a certain point, to paraphrase Cormac McCarthy, you can't stop what's coming. And so it was against all better judgments, but again, it was to all my greatest judgments. It's just that I have to do this. This is too good a story, and it feels right to do right now. I love these characters. I love the venue for this story, and lean in and don't look back. And that's how you approach it. Of course, it becomes the unintended kind of byproduct of a lot of this stuff becomes, telling a story without telephones just ends up being so much more magical. Way people can't find each other, obvious things like that, mystery that we miss nowadays, is instantly inserted into your story. And these things are very attractive, particularly to a modern life where you feel chained like a fucking cannonball to all this modern shit that's dragging you down.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? That's probably just what Thomas Pynchon would have said too. So good answer. Good answer. Speaking of Alana and Gary and characters like Doc and Shasta, I'm gonna do that really annoying film critic-y thing where I try to make a grand unified filmography theory about your work. And
oh boy,
you can just do that thing. Yeah, and you can just do that director thing of responding with, I mean, I don't know, I guess. Yeah, sounds good. But rewatching your filmography, which any sane person should be doing a lot. So many of your protagonists are like hucksters and showmen and either literal or figurative performers. And the product that they seem to be selling most often is their vision of themselves and their vision of what the world should be. In the movie Sydney, you had Sydney and his vision of like the dignified con in an undignified world. You've got God-cocked Dirk Digglers and Frank T.J. Mackey's projecting versions of themselves onto the world. You've got dueling philosophies of love and entitlement between the characters of Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood, The Master. You've got two literal visionary salesmen pressing their worldview onto the planet around them. But it seems like beginning with Inherent Vice, that focus started to shift a bit from the men who were projecting those visions and kind of more started to look at their partners that those men maybe don't see so clearly. In Inherent Vice, Doc is running around LA trying to convince everyone else that his ex-old lady has been kidnapped and needs to be rescued. But it turns out, no, he was supposed to be saving a small family instead. And in Phantom Thread, you've got Alma arresting more than half the film's POV from the ostensible lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally in Licorice Pizza, it's like it's rooted in its totality in the mindset of the exasperated Alana. The huckster is no longer the center. It's now we're looking at him from the outside. And I'm curious, when that kind of evolution happens, do you notice it? Do you stand back and see it when you look at your work? Or is it more like when you look back, you don't know, it just feels right, and that perspective feels right to you now?
I think it's more the latter. That instinctual kind, like moving. Screenwriters, they're like fucking sharks. They're moving. They're moving around to look for what they can devour, what they can eat, what smells good to them, using all their spidey senses. And I'm the way you frame the question, what you just said, I'm just remembering like Alana, my feelings for Alana, not just this character, but Alana Haim playing this part. Like I was sensing this energy from her and responding to the work that we'd done together. I was, this movie, the Licorice Pizza's, it's sort of this outgrowth from the work that I'd done with Haim and the band, because this is some of the most joyous experiences that I've had. We have no money, we have no time, we have no idea what we're doing. And you just go, you get a camera, and 2 days later you're doing something, and you kind of wing it and you come up with something, and there's generally about 7 of us. So in writing the film and planning it out, I just wanted to keep that energy going, and that energy was there in front of my face with the story that I had. And the characters, Alana just ends up having more ammunition, truthfully, than Gary does. Probably because Gary's 16. He's sort of more unpredictable in a way that you can't count on, or that isn't that interesting for a while, because, he's got the attention span of a fly. He's sort of moving, a scam for him. It's like another day, so that's interesting. This is interesting. So it's hard to wrap your hands around a character like that. Alana has more at stake. I mean, time is running out. She's lying about how old she is. 29, she's 25. I'm 25, I'm 29. She just doesn't even know how old she is. She's the youngest. She's living at home. She seems to be, just because of her age, the more emotionally mature one, but very rapidly you discover that she is completely out to lunch, emotionally immature, volatile. I suppose that, male or female, I guess I probably gravitate towards the volatile ones. I certainly have a type, clearly. And she's my type. Like, I like them like that, whether it's a Tom Cruise type of guy or Alana Kane. I like them when they're a little scattershot. Certainly more dramatic, and certainly more, more comedic possibilities with a character like that. So yeah, it's kind of probably like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Did they build it that way, or did it just start leaning? Like, what happened?
Well, that is the best possible version of the director's, I don't know, I guess, answer that I could have possibly received for that. Artfully done. So I got to applaud you there. I really
put a lot of effort into that, guys.
You put some mustard on that one. That was good. That was really good.
Somehow we got a Leaning Tower of Pisa in a Licorice Pizza interview, which I'm just absolutely flabbergasted with. But I just wanted to say, Paul, one thing I particularly love about Licorice Pizza is I feel like Alana's perspective is the only reliable one. And I think that in some of your films you've been, other than obviously the massive, ensemble tapestry that is something like Magnolia, and even in many ways Boogie Nights too. But I loved that when we were with Gary Cooper, that is Cooper Hoffman, when we're with him, he's just like you said, he's just so whatever's next, whatever the next hustle is, move on. A new hustle's just like a new pair of pants. And whereas Alana is like looking and sort of truthfully dissecting all these different hucksters that are around. And you've just got such a murderer's row of cameos and of these characters. Love Benny Safdie, the most quintessentially New York looking guy ever in an LA movie. I'm a big fan of that. Bradley Cooper's John Peters, another just completely unhinged, and just I imagine you must have just had a complete ball with Bradley, but also Jack Holden, Sean Penn's thinly veiled William Holden. I mean, that just felt like another commentary on, I guess, what Quentin, has occupied in the public consciousness recently with the whole like Rick Dalton of it all, like an equivalency, of this 50s legend just wishing he could recapture his youth jumping motorcycles. Could you talk about those lovable tapestry of hucksters that you've got in this movie that Alana has to encounter?
Well, they were all presented to me like I know it's easy to consider Inherent Vice an adaptation because it was, there's a book and we all know it, and there it is, and I did service to it. But you have to really think of this as an adaptation of my friend Gary's life, of Gary Getzman, who is a producer now with Tom Hanks. But when he started his young life here in the San Fernando Valley, he was a child actor. Okay. And he was in Yours, Mine, Ours with Lucille Ball. Okay. That's a great story already. They're shooting on the Paramount lot where Star Trek is shooting. That's a great story. Here's an even better one. He has to go to the Ed Sullivan show, television show to promote Yours, Mine, and Ours. And his mom can't go with him. He needs a chaperone. So he hires Kiki Page, a burlesque dancer that lives in his neighborhood, to be his chaperone, right? Check. That's a great story. This is, again, you're sort of adapting it. So now suddenly you've got, okay, Lucille Ball, Ed Sullivan. Oh my God. And you're how old? You're 15. And now there's Kiki Page. That's good. Okay. Tim Matheson was one of the supporting actors in that, who was coming on to Kiki Page and flirting with Kiki Page. Okay. Tim Matheson is now in the story. Taking it a step further in Gary's life, he had a girlfriend who ended up auditioning for a William Holden movie called Breezy. And you think, my God, this is like the hits keep coming here, and then you hear a story from Gary's friends about delivering a waterbed to John Peters' house. You think, well, what happened? And they say, nothing. Nicest guy in the whole world. You think, well, no, that's not good. Now I need to, that's not good. I need something there. Again, it's the screenwriter a shark thing. Like, okay, I'll steal that, use that, and then I make up my own thing over here. Joel Wax was a very famous city councilman here in the San Fernando Valley for the better part of 30 years, probably like late 60s to the late 90s. Funny story there was that Jonathan Demme actually was a guy in PR and met Gary backstage at the Ed Sullivan show. He was doing PR for UA, and the UA was handling Yours, Mine, and Ours. So he met Jonathan Demme, convinced Jonathan Demme to come out to LA because he lived in this house all by himself with his younger brother. Jonathan Demme finally did it right before they made Caged Heat. Gary had been working in Joel Wax's campaign for mayor. He said, Jonathan, you're a director. Come direct this TV spot. So they went up to the dirt part of Mulholland. They were trying to oppose this a development, kind of a lot like in Inherent Vice, but they were proposing this Beverly Ridge Estates, which they lost if they ended up building it. But Jonathan Demme directed this commercial for Joel Wax. Well, by the way, when I asked Joel Wax about it many years later, he said, no, Joel, Jonathan Demme didn't direct that. Gary Getzman did. I said, no, Jonathan Demme, the guy that made Silence of the Lambs. He said, no, I'm telling you. I said, I'm telling you, he just didn't even notice the guy because he didn't know who he was. He said, isn't that interesting? Jonathan Demme directed my television commercial. So I'm working from this adaptation, of this man's life that has all these incredible cameos, not the least of which is William Holden, and creating this kind of thinly veiled version of it. Because I think when you get into a situation like that, you have to move the goalposts around, I think, to suit the needs of your story. I didn't want somebody to do an Ed Sullivan impression. Check. You just sort of take that away. Lucille Ball, okay, do it, but don't really do it. So let's call her something else. I'm so insane that I think everybody knows William Holden when, in fact, very few people under the age of 30 do. So I probably didn't need to change that name, but I think it's a nice thing that you tell an actor, it's Jack Holden, it's not William Holden. That way they're free to do. They don't have to do an impression. You don't have to pay a certain kind of respect or service to the real William Holden, who I absolutely love and admire. And wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want anyone to think that he was as delusional as our guy. I don't think he was. I think he liked to drink, but I don't think he was quoting his own movies, to young starlet.
Oh my God.
But so, these are the kind of things that are building the spine of the story, which seemed so delicious to me. I've gone on a tangent now, but you just sort of, you have to, you measure it up about what needs to be fictionalized and what can be real. John Peters, that whole episode I think it's important that stayed as John Peters. And the reason why is because you have to imagine that a young Jewish girl in the Valley like Alana was aware of Barbra Streisand. I mean, how could she not be? This was like the height of Barbra Streisand's popularity and fame. So that is an element to the story that needs to be there. This threat of Barbra Streisand, like where is she? Is she coming home? Like this, how do you pronounce her name? All this kind of stuff. Like, so you have that, and then John Peters ends up sort of being a catch-all. It's funny. I was talking to a journalist from Denmark, and I was like, "Do you know who John Peters is?" He was like, "Of course." It was like, "What the fuck? Everybody knows John Peters." But Oh yeah, that's kind of how you navigate that stuff. I think it's funny. Look at this film as an adaptation of an unpublished life
It's
story.
a great way of looking at it. That's great. And please don't apologize for going on tangents. This is a podcast about Inherent Vice. Do you understand how many tangents have happened on this fucking thing? My God, it's just tangents upon tangents upon tangents in this bad boy. But Paul, I know we have to let you go soon, so I'm going to close out with one last question for you. And again, thank you for your time.
Unfortunately, we do not have time for one last question.
We can do one more. Go ahead. Last one.
Thank you, Paul. So my last question is this. You went on Mark Maron's show once, and he was kind of politely teasing you and grousing about how Punch Drunk Love was a bit inscrutable to him. What's that all about, man? What's that supposed to mean? And you made this kind of joyous exclamation where you just shouted out, "It's about love, baby." and maybe this is again one of those annoying critic speak questions, but isn't that what all of your films are about, really? The ways in which we fall in and out of love with the people who are both good and bad for us, and maybe is that what returns you to the worlds that you return to so often, that the way these characters, the Docs and the Shastas, the Reynolds and the Almas, the Garys and Alanas, keep finding their ways back together? Is it all about love, baby?
See, I knew I was going to regret giving you one more question. I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, I did it again. I tried to put some heat on that one.
I mean, sure, fuck it. I don't know, but I do know that, like, what I'm trying to think of a story that I like that doesn't have that at its center, or that ultimately doesn't have that at its center. Like, name a story. That's what they all are. I don't think it's exclusive to me, or at least if it is, it's certainly the ones that I like the most, for sure. Yeah. It's something, oh fuck it, I don't know, that we can all hold in our hands at least, and we all get. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably why. Yeah,
it's probably why you keep making these films, because you're just scratching at that door. That
yeah, there was a horrifying New York, I don't know, New York Times, maybe New Yorker article about somebody who scratched their head. It was like this disease of scratching your head, and they scratch all the way through their skull and get to the brain. My God. You think, like, I'm close. I mean, I've got to be close. I've got to be halfway through the skull.
Well, I think that this is your most unabashed love movie, your most joyous love story, your most "it's about love, baby" love film. And I think you've reached the brain with this one, and the heart with it. And I really, really appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for the movie. Seriously.
Thank you. Thanks, so
guys.
much.
That was
this
great.
Has been awesome.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks,
Paul.
All right, bye.
Bye.